An ordinary student named Kage wants to become the strongest in the world. He wanted to have the ability to resist any powerful weapons. Even though he trained every day to get stronger, he knows it was still not enough to achieve his desired ability. One morning when he was on his way to school, he met his classmate, named Akane, in the locker room. He had no idea that she hated him for a reason that apart from the fact that he always forgets her name, Akane could also feel that he never really noticed her. But even though Akane was annoyed with him, she still remained calm in front of him. At night, while Akane was on her way home, someone suddenly abducted her. Coincidentally, Kage was just a distance away from her, so before she lost consciousness, she knew he saw her. She was taken to an abandoned building, but the abductors were unaware that Kage had followed them. After he changed his clothes, he went inside the building. He quickly defeated one of the opponents, but the battle with his another opponent was intense. The enemy thought that he would be able to defeat him, but Kage had not yet shown his true skill. And when he did, the enemy could not do anything until Kage defeated him. He approached Akane and she thought that he was going to kill her. The next morning, they went to the locker room together, and this time, Kage did not forget Akane's name. One night, after his training, he ran onto the road and unfortunately got hit by a truck. He immediately died but was reborn in another world with his memory intact. After seeing a girl who would become his sister, he soon realized that he had ended up in a world where people use magic. So he thought that this was a perfect world for his dream of becoming the strongest. He was named Sid, and after a few years, he immediately acquired great power, but he hid it to others. Even though he and his sister Claire were on training, he did not show how skilled he was. Every night, Sid attacked the evil groups of people in their area. During one of his operations, he saw a monster being imprisoned. He took it to his hideout to conduct an experiment to it. A month later, he succeeded in his experiment on the monster and he was able to remove the curse from it. This monster turned out to be a female elf. Sid told this elf that the curse was put on her by a devil cultists who planned to revive the great demon. Then he introduced himself as Shadow and he named this elf as Alpha. This was when their organization was formed, which they called Shadow Garden. And their goal was to save others like Alpha who suffered from evil curses and fight the cults. By Claire's 15th birthday, she would study as a student at Midgar Academy, but on the day of her departure, she suddenly disappeared from her room. Alpha led the search for Claire, as the other members immediately tracked down the place where she was taken. So Sid summoned the 7 shadows for the mission of saving his sister Claire. While the leader of those who abducted Claire was talking to her, he was not aware that the 7 shadows were attacking his colleagues. When he realized what was happening, Alpha fought against him. He swallowed a drug that made him stronger. He pierced his sword through the floor to escape, but he met Shadow on his way. The two of them fought. Since he was only beaten by Shadow, he used another drug that gave him great power. But it still did not work on Shadow's strength and he lost in their fight. After they rescued his sister, she continued to go to Midgar Academy. One day, Sid met his beautiful followers and they also bid their goodbye to him for the meantime. A few years later, at the age of 15, Sid also enrolled in the school where his sister attended. There he met his 2 friends, Skal and Pa. They had a bet that whoever among the 3 of them get the lowest score in the test that took place the other day would be punished. The punishment was to approach the princess of Midgar, named Alexia, and confess his love to her. Alexia was the most popular girl in their school. Unfortunately, no one among the guys who tried to court her had gotten her approval to become someone's girlfriend yet. When they saw the result, Sid got the lowest score among them, so he must do the punishment. In the afternoon after class, Sid approached Alexia and did this while his friends were watching from a distance. He pretended to be shaking and nervous, but he was expecting that Alexia would just reject him. To his surprise, it did not happen because Alexia suddenly agreed to be his girlfriend. While in the canteen the next day, Sid became famous as the students had their eyes on him when the news spread that Alexia was now his girlfriend. While they were eating, Alexia suddenly came to sit beside him and had their meals together. Alexia also invited him to join the fencing class. Because of her influence, she was able to include Sid in her class even though he was only from the lowest section. The teacher in this class was named Zanon and he was the man agreed by their parents to marry Alexia. This was the reason why Alexia decided to accept Sid as her boyfriend and pretended to be in love with him because she did not want to marry Zenon. She chose Sid because she thought he belonged to the lower class of people and she assumed that he could make him follow her commands with a small amount of money. And she was not disappointed because as long as there was money at stake, Sid seemed to obey her commands. As agreed, the two of them continued to pretend as lovers. The next day, while they were about to enter the school, 3 men were waiting for Sid. They accused him of abducting Alexia because he was the last person she was with before her disappearance. He was taken to a room and was tortured in order to make him confess where he brought Alexia. He pretends to be hurt by what was being done to him so those who torture him would consider him a normal person. Alexia woke up and found herself tied to a bed in a prison. Then she saw a monstrous woman beside her. A man suddenly came there with injections to draw blood from her. He said he needed her blood for the experiment that they were currently doing. After torturing Sid, he was released in the afternoon but there were still people following him on his way home. When he entered his room, Alpha was there waiting for him. They talked and Alpha gave him an update on Shadow Gardenia's operations. They knew that the abduction of Alexia was done by the cultists because they were after of her blood. Before Alpha left, she asked Sid if he wanted her to eliminate those who were following him. A few hours later, Beta came to give an update on the operation that they would be doing. She also informed Sid that all the shadows were ready. Sid went down to face the 2 cult members because he knew they planted evidence in his place which could be used as a reason to arrest him again. Suddenly 2 people fell down and they were surprised because these were the ones they ordered to follow Sid. They were also immediately killed by Sid and their mission began. Meanwhile, Alexia was so weak after all that was done to her. The man came again and this time he was carrying a large injection filled with blood. He injected it into the female monster and it suddenly grew to be a horrible creature. The monster immediately killed the man who injected her with blood. Then she released Alexia from being tied. But it suddenly went wild and destroyed the place to escape. So Iris, Alexia's sister, fought it using her sword, but no matter how strong the attack she did to it, it only regenerates itself quickly. Iris thought of chopping the monster into small pieces so it could be difficult for the monster to regenerate. Alpha intervened and told her that the monster was having a hard time with what she was doing. So Alpha did something to the monster and it immediately returned to its human form. On the other hand, Alexia started to walk to find the way out. She suddenly met Xenon and she was surprised to find him there. Xenon told her that he was the owner of the facility and funded the experiments. Because of Alexia's anger, she rushed at him and the 2 of them fought. But because Alexia was weak, Xenon easily defeated her. Then Shadow appeared and introduced himself to the 2 of them. Xenon made an attack to him but was surprised by its speed. They continued to fight and Xenon was emitting powerful auras to show off but it seemed like Shadow was not taking the fight seriously. Alexia noticed Shadow's style of using the sword as if it was just ordinary like how she wielded it. Since Xenon could not defeat Shadow in any way he could, he decided to use his last weapon. He drank the red medicine and he changed his form into a big and strong monster-like creature. He immediately attacked Shadow but he could not even hit him. And Shadow just beat him up. Then Shadow released a very powerful aura and immediately finished off Xenon with just one strong attack. After this, Iris saw Alexia. And she rushed to hug her sister. The next day, Sid and Alexia talked. She begged him to continue in pretending as lovers. But Sid refused her and this made Alexia attack him. While Sid was walking while bleeding, he bumped into Sherry. Meanwhile, the other Shadow members met to discuss the results of their operation the other night. There were also new updates on their continued search and investigation of the cults. They learned that a group was using their organization's name to do evil things. One day, Iris and Alexia went to Sherry to show them something they found in the facility of the cult where they fought the other night. They believed that Sherry could find out more in-depth information about this matter because Sherry was known for her researching skill. Meanwhile, Sid and his friends went to visit the newly developed store. While standing in line, a woman approached them who was an employee of the said store. She invited Sid if he could do their survey. Sid agreed and accompanied her inside the store. They reached the top floor of the building and saw a woman named Gamma who was also a Shadow Garden member. Then he found out that she was the owner of this shop. She informed Sid that she used the idea he gave her to build a business. Sid could not believe the result of what she did. Though he was convinced that Gamma was the smartest of the 7 shadows but the only problem was her clumsiness. Once settled, they also talked about the imposter who introduced herself as Shadow Garden. Gamma also introduced Niyu as their new member, and even Alpha recognized her fighting prowess. After that, the three of them hurried home because they might be caught for the curfew time. Suddenly Sid felt something strange and stopped running. Sid pretended to have a stomach ache and told Skell and Pa to go home first. He knew Alexia was nearby and fighting the Shadow Garden imposters. When they cornered Alexia, Shadow came to help her and immediately killed one of them. The other two ran away quickly, but Shadow still caught up and killed one of them. Niyu appeared and begged Shadow to let her take care of the opponent. The enemy immediately attacked Niyu, but she was able to kill the imposter first. While in the library, Sid was thinking about who he would give his chocolate. Then he decided that the first woman he would meet was the one to receive it. As he was about to leave, Sherry came carrying a lot of books. She placed it beside him, so he gave the chocolates to her. Although she was surprised, Sherry remembered him. While Sid was walking to school, and he immediately felt that Niyu was following him. They talked and she gave him an update about those they caught the other night. Niyu told him that the person had lost its mind after being brainwashed, so she could not get any information. The mastermind took children who could use magic from the orphanages and those from poor families so they could create devils. These imposters also used the name of the Shadow Garden to force the true members of the organization to reveal themselves. She had given a lot of information to him, but what was on Sid's mind was the duel event that would take place. Sid was forced to join the duel because of the insistence of Skell and Pa. He agreed to join since he was planning to do something. He was going to fight against Rose, the student council president. He pretended to be weak and let himself to always get hit by the sword. In spite of this, he also stood up after each attack. When Rose was about to use her strong magic for her next attack, the referee cut off the fight and immediately declared Rose as the winner. While Sid was walking, Sherry called him and they both talked while having coffee. Sherry gave him a bag of cookies to show her gratitude from the chocolate she received. She also told Sid that she wanted to be friends with him. Since Sid did not see any problem with this, he agreed to be her friend. Sherry's foster father joined their conversation and he recognized him too. Then he realized that the woman in front of him was Sherry Barnett, who was also a well-known person. One day while they were in the classroom, Rose and a girl entered for the upcoming election. While Rose's companion was explaining the details of the upcoming election, Sid suddenly felt something strange. Suddenly, a group of men barged in and introduced themselves as Shadow Garden members. Rose was about to try and fight, but she could not use her magic. Suddenly a man attacked Rose, so Sid immediately pushed her, causing him to be hit by the sword. Because of this, another girl was impressed by his heroism. He pretended to be dead and was left in the room while other students were brought to the auditorium. When no one else was around, he got up and healed his wound. While Sherry was studying the artifact, an enemy named Rex came in through the window. Sherry's guards, named Glenn and Marco, immediately entered and helped Sherry escape. They already knew that the enemies wanted the artifact, which was on Sherry's care. Meanwhile, from the top of the building, Sid was targeting on killing the enemies he could see below. As Sherry walked to go to the room where the book with information about magic was placed, Sid secretly helped her so the enemies would not catch her. When she was about to fall down the stairs, he caught her and accompanied her in finding the book. When they found it, Sherry told him that the artifact used in their school that prevented the use of magic was the so-called Eye of Avarice. She added that she could stop it with the artifact she was currently studying. Sherry planned to get to the auditorium through the basement tunnel. She had a hunch that the Eye of Avarice was there because the students were gathered in that area. If she could activate the artifact she was holding near the Eye of Avarice, it would be stopped. But she left the things she needed in her room. So Sid volunteered that he would get her things for her. While Rex was looking for Sherry with the 4 assistants, Sid attacked them until Rex was left alone. Even though Rex was using his strongest magic, Sid was just beating him until he ended up in a room full of his dead comrades that Sid had killed. He was terrified by what he saw and Sid finished him immediately. Niyu saw the dead bodies of Glenn and Marco, whom she also knew personally. When Sid came, she gave a report that the shadows had entered school and were just waiting for his order. While Iris Group was also outside the school. Sid asked her help in finding the things Sherry was asking for. When they completed collecting all of these things, he returned to Sherry. Meanwhile, Iris Group could not take action because of the magic surrounding the entire school. Niyu went inside the auditorium and pretended to be a captive. She would give a signal to Gamma's group, which was already above the auditorium. When she was done with the preparations, Sherry tried to activate the artifact and succeeded in doing so. She immediately went to the basement tunnel that led to the auditorium. While the leader of the Shadow Garden imposters was wondering that Rex had not yet returned, they were all surprised when they heard a gunshot. To their horror, the enemies started shooting other students one by one. When Sherry arrived at the auditorium, she immediately used the artifact and the magic surrounding the school disappeared. When Rose felt this, she immediately rushed at the enemy and told the students to attack the others as well. The students rushed quickly and followed Rosia's command. So the leader of the enemies ordered to kill the students. It simply took the artifact thrown by Sherry. Suddenly, Shadow and other members of the Shadow Garden arrived. While the Shadow Garden members were fighting the enemies, Rose saw this as an opportunity to tell the students to leave the auditorium. Sherry ventured to look for her foster father, but she noticed the gas leak. After a few seconds, the building burst into flames. While Gamma and other members were outside, they also noticed that the other school buildings were also on fire. This was done by the leader of the enemy, who also left after accomplishing this. The group of Iris was able to enter the school and help the students. She saw Rose and found out the whole incident, that there were two groups who introduced themselves as Shadow Garden and were currently fighting when they escaped. The Shadow Garden killed the enemies, and Gamma's group also got what they needed from the school. They were just waiting for Shadow to eliminate the leader of the enemy. The leader of the enemy took the books one by one in a room and burned them on the floor. Sid appeared to him and already knew that the leader of the enemies was the assistant principal of the school and Sherry's foster father, Lutheran Barnett. Lutheran started to tell Sid his past as well as how he met Sherry's mother, who was also a good researcher. When she saw the Eye of Avarice artifact, which she had been looking for a long time, she planned to give it to the government's care because it was a dangerous thing. But Lutheran did not like the idea, so he killed her, which until now Sherry still did not know about it. The two of them fought and Sid pretended to be defeated easily. But Shadow appeared and Lutheran used the Eye of Avarice on his body. It gave him great power, but no matter what he did to attack Shadow, he could not hit him. He used his strongest attack, but he was the only one who got injured. He attacked Shadow again, and he also told him that he had already arranged what he had to do. He wanted Shadow to be blamed for everything that happened and be recognized as the traitor of the whole world. Shadow replied that he did not care if he did it because the Shadow Garden never meant to take the road to be good or bad. He clarified that they only take the path they wanted. Shadow pierced Lutheran's arms and legs one by one, and he also did to him what Lutheran did to Sherry's mother. He left immediately, but Sherry was there, who saw how her foster father died. And he chose not to tell her the truth. While Sid was leaving school because of the early vacation that was given to them due to the destruction of the entire school, Sherry met him to say goodbye. He thanked Sid for his help and decided to just study at Laugus. She added that she had no reason to stay there. Because of the early vacation, the other students went to their respective homes. Since Sid had no plans to do at home, he just hid from his sister so she would not take him back. He received a letter from Alpha for their next mission, and it was in the Sacred Land. Meanwhile, the Shadow members, Beta and Epsilon, faced each other to argue about who was noticed more by Sid between them. In the middle of their argument, Miyu came to inform them of the new missions sent by Alpha. On the other hand, the sisters Alexia and Iris went to Gamma's shop so Alexia could shop for things that she would use in her upcoming departure to the Sacred Land. Sid started a trip to the Sacred Land and Rose was with him. He could actually get to the Sacred Land quickly, he just had to wait for it to get dark and run very fast. But he chose to take the train like an ordinary person, but he realized that he made a mistake in this decision. Because when he arrived at the train station, Rose saw him, and this was the reason why they were together on the trip. When they arrived at the Sacred Land, they started looking at the goods sold on the streets. While the two of them were walking, Rose saw her favorite writer, Natsum, was giving her autograph to those who bought his books. Rose immediately lined up and take the opportunity to get her favorite writer's autograph. As Sid looked at the displayed books on the shelf, he noticed that these were the same books he had read in his previous life. He was thinking that this might not be a coincidence and that maybe someone else like him has reincarnated and lived in the same world. He went to the line and found out that it was Beta. And like Gamma, she also used the information she learned from Sid. Because Beta liked literature, she wrote the stories she learned and published the books. He thought that Beta was just getting an idea from those he shared to her, but it turned out she copied the whole story. Instead of an autograph, Beta put all the details about their next mission in the book. By nightfall, Alpha went to the cathedral and found the murdered body of Archbishop Drake. Other colleagues of the Archbishop arrived and they saw Alpha leaving and she was blamed for what happened. They immediately ordered to close the entire cathedral to prevent Alpha from leaving the area. As Sid was eating ice cream while observing the area from above, he noticed someone was running on the roof of a building. When the person descended, he noticed Sid approaching, so he attacked him. He only hit the spoon used by Sid in the ice cream he had eaten. Suddenly, someone attacked the man from above and it died instantly. It turned out to be Epsilon. Then she informed Sid about the current status of the mission, including the assassination of the Archbishop and its perpetrator. The next day, Sid decided to take a bath in the hot spring, but Alexia was also there, who was shocked to see him enter the area. While Sid was just relaxing, Alexia felt awkward and could not stand it anymore, so she talked to Sid. Sid asked what made her go to the sacred land. Alexia replied that she was a special guest for the goddess trial. Since Sid did not know anything about the goddess trial, Alexia explained it to him. The goddess trial was held once a year when the door of the sanctuary opened for a ritual battle. That the ancient warriors would wake up from the sanctuary and fight anyone who challenged them in a battle. Alexia also mentioned about the assassination of the Archbishop. And one of her goals in coming to the sacred land was to audit him. Sid changed the topic and told her to stop staring at his Excalibur. To hide her embarrassment, she described it more like a worm. So he replied that she should not immediately judge it based on its external appearance. Then he stood in front of Alexia at the same time, which caught her off guard. Sid got out of the bath and Alexia was left there stunned. The day had arrived for holding the goddess trial. A lot of people attended, including Rose and Beta, better known to most as Natsum. While the incumbent Archbishop Nelson was speaking, Alexia remembered his refusal on her to conduct an audit on the late Archbishop. When Natsum's name was shouted, Alexia turned her attention to the girl next to her. While Natsum turned her head and glared at Alexia. She thought that she was more deserving for the times when Alexia was with Sid or Shadow. In Alexia's annoyance, she stepped on Natsum's foot while Rose just smiled while watching Sid. The battle started until Sid's name was called as one of the challengers, which surprised Alexia and Natsum. Sid was thinking about his possible choices once he entered the arena. First, he thought to fight as Sid, but if a strong ancient warrior came out, viewers might thought that he had strong powers. Second, is to run away, but the name of his school had been mentioned and he might be removed and put the entire school into shame for cowardice once he did this. And the third was what he thought would be better for him. So he fought as Shadow and his opponent was Aurora, known as the Witch of Calamity. Since Alexia and Rose did not know anything about her, Beta told them how powerful Aurora was. Then Beta begged Nelson to tell more what he knew about Aurora. So Nelson said that she was the most powerful sorceress in history. He added that Shadow was just unlucky that she was the one who would fight him, because he surely could not do anything to harm Aurora. But Alexia did not agree with what Nelson said, because if this person came out as Shadow's opponent, then Shadow's strength was definitely at Aurora's level. Aurora made her attack first, but all of these attacks were just dodged by Shadow. She continued to attack him until Shadow had his chance to counter hers. And he immediately defeated Aurora with just one attack. Shadow left immediately after Aurora disappeared. The barrier in the arena gradually cracked, and when it was broken, a door to another dimension was formed. A large part of the city was filled with red light. Even though Shadow was already outside, the door in the arena appeared to him. Then he realized that it would not stop following him no matter where he went. As soon as he thought of the person he had fought, he decided to enter this door that would take him to another dimension. Nelson could not believe that the door to the sanctuary would appear immediately in the middle of the goddess trial just after Shadow's fight. Because this door is about to open, Nelson immediately informed that people were not allowed to come near it and just leave the arena. Alpha, Delta, and Epsilon arrived with other Shadow Garden members. Alexia told them not to take any action until the door was closed. But Alpha and Delta approached the door and immediately entered it. Epsilon was about to take Nelson to join her inside the sanctuary, but she was attacked by Executioner Venom. She was able to avoid this attack and quickly defeated the enemy. Then she forcibly brought Nelson into the sanctuary. When Beta entered the door, Alexia and Rose followed. According to legend, a hand of the devil was sealed here after the hero Olivier defeated it. But Alpha and the Shadow Garden were more interested in what they would learn about cults and devils. When they saw the statue of the hero Olivier, they realized that it was a woman, contrary to the public display of the statue in the city. And it was also an elf similar to Alpha and the other members of the Shadow Garden. While Sid went to a white room where he saw Aurora, who was sitting in bound. Sid freed her and they decided to work together out of the sanctuary. Then Aurora told him that the sanctuary was said to be a prison of memories from an ancient battle. If they could destroy its magical core, she would be freed from there. But the problem was they could not use their magic there. After they came out and while walking around the garden, they saw the young Aurora crying. The two of them approached her, and because Aurora was annoyed by her crying, she slapped her. When Alpha opened a door, they were brought to Olivier's memories. They were in a facility where the cults gathered orphan children and experimented on them. Most of them could not bear what was being done to them and died from the side effects of the experiments. A few women survived there who were considered as the possessed. Olivier was one of the few children who were compatible with the Diablo cells injected into them by the cultists. When Olivier had the power of the devil, she was given a mission. What everyone knew, that this mission was to defeat the demon, but the truth was that Olivier could get more cells from it. She followed the order, thinking it was leading to the peaceful life of the people. But even though Olivier cuts off several parts from the demon, it still did not die. Using the ancient artifacts, they were able to stop one of the demona's hands. When they cut it open, they studied the blood coming from its flesh. Then they have created the medicine that give great power to those who drink it. But what the cults really wanted was to create a medicine that, apart from the extreme power it could provide, it could also prevent a person from aging so one could possess eternal youth. This medicine was called Beads of Diablo, but there are two things to remember when taking this medicine. First was to make sure that it must be taken once a year so that its effect would not disappear. The second was to remember that there were only 12 pieces of medicine that could be produced a year. The high-ranking officials of the cult organization that was said to be the Knights of Rounds was mentioned. They found out that it consisted of 12 members, and one of which was Archbishop Nelson. Alpha added that in order to perfect the Beads of Diablo, the cults thought that one of the needed requirements were those like her who possessed blood from Olivier. The Archbishop was about to change form when he was suddenly stabbed from behind by Delta. But it was still alive and attacked them, so they split up. Alpha and others went to a place that was all white where they faced Nelson and its clones. While Epsilon and the other members of the Shadow Garden were left behind. Delta immediately rushed Nelson and they both fought. She noticed something different, and so did Alpha. It turned out that as they got closer to the center of the sanctuary, their power were being absorbed. And Nelson, on the other hand, was getting stronger as he got closer to the center. Nelson thought he had the advantage, but to his surprise, his female opponents were even stronger than he expected. Delta showed how strong she was as she used her iron slab and smashed Nelson's clones. Meanwhile, the other members of Shadow Garden wandered around the facility. Then they saw someone that looked like a zombie. As it approached them, Epsilon went near it. When they met, it became like the soul of a child and suddenly disappeared. They arrived at the location of the data on the experiments done by the cults. They found there the information that would help them in their investigation of the cults and the devils. While Sid and Aurora were brought to the place where the ancient battle took place. In the wide pit they saw the young Aurora again. Aurora borrowed Sid's sword, and when she was about to kill the young Aurora, she was suddenly attacked by those who died in the battle. Fortunately, Sid quickly saved her. One by one, the corpses that were lying earlier stood up and approached them. They fought against them and knocked down most of the corpses. Sid attacked the young Aurora with his sword, then they were transferred to the center of the sanctuary. They saw the sword that was the only thing that could break the chains that blocked the door. When Sid tried to pull out the sword, Aurora saw what was written below, that only the descendants of the owner of the sword could pull it out. Delta also continued to fight Nelson's other clones until they were returned to the area where Olivier's statue was built. Nelson got Olivier out while the group Epsilon came to inform Alpha that they had finished their investigation. They immediately left the area as Nelson and Olivier stayed behind. Suddenly, Nelson received information that someone had entered the center of the sanctuary. While Sid and Aurora were talking, Nelson and Olivier arrived. Sid immediately noticed that Nelson's female companion resembled Alpha. Nelson ordered Olivier to kill Sid, so she started to attack him. With Olivier's speed, she was able to hit Sid many times with her attacks. But Nelson was annoyed because Sid was still alive. Aurora stopped him from continuing the fight with Olivier. She told him that she would find other way for him to get out of the sanctuary. Then Nelson interrupted that if she cooperated with him, he would not let Sid live. She was about to agree to Nelsona's offer, but Sid interrupted their conversation. He told them that he was insulted by what the two were talking about. He did not like how they made him appear as someone who could not beat Olivier and told him that he did not need Aurora's help. He told Olivier to attack, so she stabbed Sid. But Sid smiled and opened one of his eyes. He grabbed Olivier and bit her, causing her to immediately disappear. As Sid approached Nelson, he released more of Olivier's clones. He ordered some of these clones to attack Sid at the same time. So Sid opened his eye and easily defeated them. Nelson was shocked when he saw Sid's weapon and that he was able to use magic. Sid told him that he just needed to make his magic more solid so that it would not be easily absorbed by the sanctuary. Nelson got pissed and ordered all clones to attack him at the same time, so Sid unleashed his great power while Alpha and other Shadow Garden members marveled as they watched outside. Even the two princesses were shocked by this extreme power. Sid saw the demon's broken arm bound in Aurora's face as well. Then he suddenly woke up next to her. When Aurora was about to touch him, her hand gradually disappeared. Before Aurora disappeared completely, she thanked Sid for the memories she had with him. Meanwhile, as they were walking back, Alexia had a lot going on in her mind about the things that happened, including the Shadow Garden and the cults. She wanted to gather more information on the things that happened and the ongoing battle. She offered Rose and Beta to work with her in what she planned to do. And both agreed with her. Epsilon gave a report to Alpha about the complete destruction of the sanctuary and the holy sword. She added that they were not able to recover a sample from its magical core. They also discussed Beta's mission to socialize with the princesses. Epsilon confirmed that their theory was also correct, that Aurora had another name and it was the demon Diablo. After that, Alpha asked her to prepare for their next mission, and it was to the royal capital of Midgar. As their mission continued, Gamma talked to an agent who was selling land in Madlid. While this agent was encouraging her to buy the land, Niu entered and informed her that it was confirmed that there was petroleum in the area. Gamma immediately agreed to Agenta's offer and purchased the land. Niu also ordered others to begin purchasing lands around the Nile River. Gamma announced to Alpha the upcoming visit of the Royal Chancellor of Oriana, named Pervashat, to the royal capital of Midgar. While bathing, Alexia and her sister Iris talked about what happened in the sacred land. What they discussed included the upcoming visit of the King of Oriana, who was one of the allies of their kingdom. Iris also mentioned the upcoming Bushin festival that she planned to participate in because she wanted to win it. If she succeeded, she could get the full support of the people and made their father or the king and the high officials to listen to what she wanted to say. Alexia worried that the cults and the Shadow Garden members might be involved in the Bushin festival again. But Iris was not swayed by this, even though she knew that the members of the Shadow Garden, especially Shadow, possessed great power. In case the cults and Shadow Gardens interfere with the Bushin festival, they must be defeated. While Rose was on her training, she suddenly felt something in her chest and was surprised by what she saw there. At the beginning of the Bushin festival, those who wanted to participate in it came from different places. Meanwhile, Sid was just at the top of a building and watched those who wanted to join. He also planned to join it and would just pretend to be a weak participant, so that the viewers would be surprised by what he would show in the contest. He went to Gamma and asked her help with his plan to change his appearance. So she brought out Beta's invention, which was able to change a person's entire appearance. She also recommended the persona of Mundane Man, and Sid agreed to it. After the session, they succeeded in copying the exact face and body of Mundane Man. While Sid was outside in the person of Mundane Man, he met Rose. Because of Sid's appearance, Rose advised him not to participate in the Bushin festival. So Sid answered and told her not to judge a person by the outward appearance, and then he left. But he actually liked Rose's reaction because he succeeded in his disguise. He was stopped by a man who introduced himself as Quentin, who always participated in the Bushin festival. Quentin told him that he did not want to see weaklings like him. But he got angry when he was told that he was even weaker. He beat Sid, who was just pretending to be hurting Quintona's punches. But Rose spoke and asked him to stop. So Quentin left and Rose approached Sid. She intended to heal the injuries he suffered, but she was told that he no longer needed it. Before Sid left, they introduced themselves to each other. After he registered in the contest, he met and talked to Skell. Skell planned to bet on the battles that would take place at the Bushin Festival. Since the contest would begin in the preliminary, he would get there the data of his potential participants. He also told Sid the possible winners in the tournament, and these include Iris and Rose. In the evening, while Sid was on his way home, he met Rose. She mentioned to him that her father introduced her to her fiancé, who was Perv Asshat. Then Rose stated to reveal her reason why she chose to hold the sword. She also disobeyed the wishes of the people around her to follow the art and culture for which their area was known. She added that her interest in holding a sword started when he was saved by a man who also uses a sword. Before Rose left, she asked Sid if he would trust her no matter what happens. Sid said yes to Rose and gave her the food he bought. The next day, Skell took Sid to watch the battle in the preliminary. As he said, he needed to collect the data for potential participants that he could bet on. Then they met Goldu, who was also one of the participants, and he offered to help Skell in choosing the strongest participants. Sid left for a while because Mundane Man would fight next and his opponent was named Gonzalez. Goldu said that as far as he could observe, Gonzalez had a power level of 1,364 while Mundane Man has only a power level of 33. When the fight started, they were all surprised when Gonzalez fell first. With the speed of Mundane's attack, other people did not see it, but Rose did. Out of embarrassment, Goldu tried to reason for his miscalculations, but he assured on Skell that things would change since he would fight Mundane tomorrow. So he told Skell that he should know already who he would bet on. When Sid returned, Skell immediately asked him for funds to bet tomorrow because they would surely win. While Sid was resting, Skell hurriedly went to his room to show him the content of the newspaper. The news was about Rose, who allegedly stabbed her fiancé, Perv Asshat, and her whereabouts was not yet known. After finding out what happened to Rose, Alexia and Beta immediately met to discuss it. They learned that the Kingdom of Oriana did not want the Kingdom of Midgar to interfere in the resolution of this case. They were worried that Rose might be subjected to severe punishment because Rose's fiancé was the son of a Duke of Oriana. They just felt relieved knowing that this would not lead to the death penalty because Rose was a princess. Alexia wanted to see and to talk to Rose to know her side before Oriana's soldiers capture her. Beta told her that she would gather information. She also heard things that were not good about Rose's fiancé, so she would look into it as well. While Alexia would try to talk to Iris to ask for advice. After Alexia left, Beta ordered a Shadow Garden member to give Alexia information about Perv Asshat and the Oriana royal family. So Alexia would be busy thinking more about it and could not act immediately. Meanwhile, Rose was currently in an underground tunnel because of the complex passages there. She chose it as a good hiding place. Sid and Skell watched the contest, and when Sid came downstairs he met a woman who told him that she could smell an elf on him. The woman told him that she was looking for her sister's daughter and maybe he knew an elf who looked like her. When the woman removed her hood, Sid immediately thought of Alpha. But Sid answered that he did not know anyone who looked like her. Then suddenly she attacked Sid, who pretended to be shocked and scared. The woman thought he was strong, but she made a mistake and helped Sid to get up. So he asked for her name and she introduced herself as Beatrix. While Rose was watching the contest, Quentin approached her and they talked about the Mundane Man's fight the other day. They also mentioned Goldu, who would compete with Mundane on this day. According to Rose, Goldu was known as the unbeaten legend because he retreated immediately when he knew that his opponent was stronger than him. She knew this because they would have faced each other 3 times in the tournament, but he always backed out before their match. They thought that he had a strong sense on the participant's ability, which could be the reason why he did not back down from Mundane Man. When the fight started, Goldu immediately attacked, but Mundane was able to dodge it. Goldu saw what could happen to him if he continued, so he immediately retreated. Quentin did not see what Mundane did, but Rose only heard something snapping on Mundane's neck. Goldu was very angry because Mundane did not even show frustration at the wasted opportunity to defeat him. So he used the golden dragon blade to finish off his opponent, but when he got close, Mundane just sneezed and shoved him back. Because of this, Mundane Man has won and people could not believe the quick turn of events. Rose tried to reason by saying that maybe Mundane was not used to the shiny armor of Goldie, so he sneezed. Quentin did not believe it this time and said that if Mundane keeps winning, he would face him in the preliminary finals. He left. Iris talked to Perv Asshat and asked him if he was sure that he did not need additional security to protect him. Perv Asshat understood what Iris was doing because of the abduction of Alexia. While the King of Oriana repeatedly mentioned to follow the orders of Perv Asshat. But his words annoyed Iris so much. When the preliminary finals came, Mundane quickly defeated Quentin. Because of this, Mundane was already in the main tournament and he would face Rose in the first round. The viewers were confused whether to bet on Mundane or not. Meanwhile, Rose was seen by those who were looking for her and she was forced to fight them. Although she hit the guards with her sword, she made sure not to hit its vitals. She also immediately ran because others were approaching and continued chasing her. While Sid was thinking about the upcoming contest, Scal visited him to show the reward to whoever could catch or could provide information on Rose's whereabouts. Scal wanted them to do it so they could get the reward. When Sid saw Claire entering the house, he immediately got dressed and pulled Scal out to start their operation to find Rose. Scal did not know that this was just a way for Sid to pass the time while his sister was still not in good mood. Then he heard the sound of a piano and remembered his past life as a good pianist too. While listening to it, he realized that it was his favorite Moonlight Sonata. He immediately wondered why anyone in this world knew the Moonlight Sonata, so he also thought that the person playing it might be reincarnated like him. When he entered the building it was just Epsilon who also applied what she learned from him. After she played the piano, they talked and she mentioned that she had received an award from the royal family because of her piano performance. She informed Sid that she was also invited by the Kingdom of Oriana. Similarly, it was an opportunity for her to do both her career as pianist and her duties as a member of the Shadow Garden. So Sid asked her if she knew or had any information about Rose's whereabouts. Since Beta was assigned about it, Epsilon did not have much information but she only knew that Rose was hiding in an underground tunnel. So Sid bid goodbye and left to continue the search. Meanwhile, Beta and Alexia met to discuss the status of their search for Rose. Alexia mentioned what Iris said about what she noticed. The King of Oriana seemed strange when her sister went to see him. Beta asked her where the stairs would lead them. Then Alexia answered that it was going to the underground tunnel and they would try to find Rose there. Rose on the other hand was getting weak from fighting those who wanted to seize her. At that moment, she remembered the times in their palace when she saw her father who was acting strange and not himself anymore. She immediately found out that this was done by Perv and that other officials in the kingdom were involved in doing this to the king. In her anger she attacked Perv who got injured and she realized that she fell into their trap so they could arrest her. She knew that Perv was a member of the cult and its other members were currently scattered in the Kingdom of Oriana. She was thinking of giving up because the innocent soldiers of their kingdom who were dragged into this situation were only following orders and were hurt by her. He remembered Sid and how he told her that he trusted her. Suddenly she felt excruciating pain from her chest because of the curse on her body. When she heard the Moonlight Sonata, she stood up and continued walking. In the distance, she was surprised to see Shadow playing the piano. While she was clapping at the beautiful music, Shadow stood up and asked her about her current plans. Rose sadly replied that she wanted to protect her loved ones but she could not do anything in her current situation. Hearing this from her, he decided to give her power, and the curse on her body disappeared. When she received the power, Shadow disappeared. After a while, those chasing her appeared to attack her. She then tried the power that Shadow gave to her. Alexia felt the great power somewhere, so she hurried to go to where it was. Then she saw Rose walking towards them so they approached her. Alexia wanted to know the real reason why she did that to Perv but Rose did not want to answer it because she did not want them to be involved in this mess. But Alexia got angry and attacked which caused the fight between them. A few moments later, Beta saw Rose coming and carrying Alexia who was unconscious. She left Alexia on Beta's care. Before she could leave, Beta told her that she would not stop her from what she wanted to do and hoped that she succeed on her plans. After what she said, Rose immediately left. When Sid returned to his lodging, Claire was still there patiently waiting for him. In Claire's anger, she strangled him and only then he realized that his sister's anger was getting worse as time went on. She gave him a ticket for the Bushin festival for him to watch the fight because she would be representing their school instead of Rose. One day, Alexia visited Beta in her office but she had already left. She was informed that Beta had to do research abroad but left her an envelope containing information about the Kingdom of Oriana that Alexia could use. The main tournament of the Bushin festival had started and Sid did not expect that it was a VIP ticket that he received from Claire. He also saw Iris there and they were sitting next to each other. Iris apologized to Sid for mistaking him of Alexia's disappearance before, which was Zanon's doing. They talked about Alexia and he told her about what she did to him before. She mentioned that she wanted to see someone, but it was not a participant in the Bushin festival. It was the elf swordmaster called the War Goddess. Her name was Beatrix, who won the Bushin festival for the first time, and it was possible that she was there somewhere in the area. Sid suddenly remembered the elf he knew who looked like Alpha. Then he excused himself for a while because his match would be announced next. While walking he felt a great power. It turned out to be Beatrix, and she asked him again if he had seen an elf that looked like her. She said that she might find there what she was looking for because there were many people attended the contest. Perv approached Iris and they talk about the ongoing fight between Anne Rose and Mundane Man. Iris mentioned that even though Mundane looks weak, she was still not sure that Anne Rose would win because Mundane Man seemed not bothered by his fight. Anne Rose remembered Mundane's past battles and she knew that he had not yet unleashed his true strength. When the fight started, Anne Rose immediately attacked, but Mundane was able to block and avoid it. After a while, Mundane started to attack and she was surprised by its speed. So she prepared a counter on Mundane's next attack. After his attack, she did not expect that he was able to calculate the right distance to avoid her counterattack. This was the reason why Anne Rose was defeated and Mundane won the fight. Iris was impressed by this, but they could not believe how Mundane managed to win. They also noticed his unique style of holding the sword. Since the next fight was between her and Mundane, she felt that Mundane was still hiding something, but she did not want to lose in their fight. When Iris left, Perv also left the Aran and ordered his staff to find out more about Mundane because he suspected that he was from the underworld. Meanwhile, Anne Rose approached Mundane to congratulate him on winning in their match. She offered him to go with her in Velgalta, but he refused and told her that he might not fit in there. After Iris defeated her opponent, she saw Beatrix leaving the arena, so she chased after her. When she approached her in the plaza, Beatrix offered her some food. The next day, Sid returned to the VIP's place to watch the contest. Iris also arrived to watch, and a few minutes later they saw Beatrix being prevented from entering by the guards. Iris went to them and told the guards that she was the one who invited her. The guards were surprised to learn that this woman was Beatrix. While Perv continued in giving Rose's father the medicine so they could easily control him. Together with the King of Midgar, they would also watch the contest. Perv's staffs had finished searching about Mundanea's background, but they failed to get any information. This confirmed his suspicion that Mundane might actually be from the underworld. When they passed in front of Beatrix, he was told by her that he smelled bad. In Perv's anger, he ordered her out of the arena, but when Iris said Beatrix's name, he was surprised and let it go. He wondered why Beatrix was there and wanted to kill her too. But he did not know how to do it because he knew that she was skilled than Iris. Claire's fight was over and next was the fight between Mundane and Iris. When the fight started, Iris felt strange that she was attacked by him caused her to retreat immediately. Her imagination continued that she was constantly being hit by Mundane's attacks. When Rose arrived at the arena of the Bushin festival, she saw the dead bodies of the cultists on the floor. Then Beta and other Shadow Garden members showed up and told her to continue what she intended to do. Iris noticed that with every slight movement of Mundane's arm she felt that she was being attacked. The audience began to notice how Iris reacted and thought that she was scared. This pissed her off, so she released her intense power and immediately rushed at Mundane. When she was close to Mundane she noticed that he was not holding his sword which Mundane was holding earlier. He dodged her attack and managed to knock her down as well. When his sword was pointed at her and since her sword was also destroyed, Mundane was declared the winner in the fight. The King of Midgar left immediately and Perv got worried about what he saw. While Beatrix was amazed at Mundane's technique. She also said that she wanted to fight him. Rose suddenly appeared and confronted Perv and his father. She apologized to her father for the things she did. Suddenly, her father spoke and said that he forgave her, which surprised Perv. Then Rose suddenly attacked, but Perv immediately turned Rose's father into a shield, causing him to be stabbed by her instead. After the death of her father, she intended to end her life too. Perv immediately ordered his men to stop her from doing it to herself. Suddenly, Mundane intervened and killed Perv's guards. Rose remembered the man who saved her when she was young and inspired her to wield a sword. After Mundane transformed back into Shadow, Rose recognized him as the stylish bandit slayer. She told the story when she met this stylish bandit slayer. She was amazed as Shadow was trying to fight against evil, but she felt embarrassed because she chose to kill herself to end the pain she felt. But Shadow told her that her battle was not over yet. Then she looked at her father who was lying on the ground. She ran to escape and Shadow stopped Perv from chasing after her. When Perv called his other guards, it turned out that all of them were killed by Beta and the others. Beatrix suddenly attacked Shadow, and with the great force of the impact from the attack, the building was gradually being destroyed, so Perv immediately left there. Their fight continued at the top of a building. Shadow suddenly disappeared and went to Beatrix's back, which surprised her by his speed. Iris came with a mithril blade and told Beatrix that they will fight together against him. She used the power of the mithril blade twice on him, but he just dodged it both times. Beatrix attacked him and their fight continued. When Rose was far away, she met Alpha. She offered Rose to choose whether she would fight alone to save the kingdom of Oriana or she would cooperate with the Shadow Garden. Since Rose could feel that the Shadow Garden could help her to save Oriana, she chose to cooperate with the group. On the other hand, the fight still between Shadow and Beatrix continued until they reached in other parts of the city. Iris told Beatrix that she would do anything to stop him and she wanted her to take this opportunity to attack Shadow. While they were doing this plan, it still did not work because of his strength and speed, causing them to be both beaten by him. When Iris and Beatrix stood up, Shadow released a strong power that stunned the two while watching him. Suddenly the whole city lit up and then Shadow disappeared from their sight. Iris was so annoyed on the outcome of the fight that all she could do was to burst into tears. While Beatrix decided to leave Midgar even though she had not yet found her niece. Beta said that Shadow succeeded in making Midgar busy in their search for him. In this case, Midgar would not be involved in the chaos in Oriana. A few days later, students began to be admitted back to school. And Shadow continued to pretend as an ordinary and weak student. On the other hand, Alpha took Rose and they went straight to the ancient capital Alexandria where the Shadow Gardina's hideout was located. Alpha told Lambda to train Rose until she developed her true abilities. So Lambda called their two members to let them know that Rose would be included in their group. A few days later, the Shadow Garden had a meeting about the progress of their plans. Beta informed Shadow that after the incident that happened at the Bushin Festival, they had not yet noticed any action from the Cult of Devils and the Fenrir sect. Although this was good news for their plan in the Oriana Kingdom, Zeta and Ada had gathered news about the increase in monetary resources that were sent to the lawless city. After a while, they noticed that the color of the moon turned red. Because of this, they once again remembered the tragedy that happened thousands of years ago. If the legend was true, the lawless city might not be the only one that would be affected, but also the neighboring kingdoms as well. Shadow decided that he would go to the lawless city to take care of what needed to be done there. Meanwhile, Goldie and Quentin were currently in the lawless city, and they were observing the Crimson Tower, which was the territory of Blood Queen Elizabeth, who was one among the three in charge of the lawless city. They intended to fight the Blood Queen, but the guard on the gate, called the White Devil, suddenly appeared. He told Goldie and Quentin that they would end up losing their arm just like his, if they continued to execute what they were planning. But the two did not budge, so the White Devil was forced to fight them. The next morning, Sid also arrived in the city, and it was Claire who brought him there. He recalled the events, which was the reason why he got there with his sister. After Claire won the Bushin Festival Championship, she immediately decided to go to the lawless city to get rid of vampires. And she also forced him to go there to improve his resume because she was planning to sign him up into the Midgar's Night Order after he graduated. Suddenly, someone offered Claire some of his prisoners to be her slaves, and those prisoners that he was referring to were Goldie and Quentin. As Sid stared at them, he also thought that the two beaten prisoners looked familiar to him. In the afternoon, Claire left him at the inn, but he was bored, so he decided to go out. The pickpockets tried to snatch money from him, but this caused Sid to earn more money instead. As he made his way through an alley, he saw three men beating a ghoul. But when the red moon reappeared, the ghoul suddenly got stronger and attacked those who beat him. When the ghoul was about to approach Sid, an ancient vampire hunter named Mary happened to pass by and immediately killed the ghoul. Then Mary said some nice things to Sid which he liked, and those never left his mind. On the other hand, Claire was very angry after she found out that her brother was not at the inn. Suddenly, a man came out of the other room and was being chased by a ghoul, so she quickly saved him from it. Skal and Po were also there to experience the red light district, but someone suddenly attacked them from behind. It turned out to be the ghouls who made them scream, and they were heard by a woman named Marie who was in another room. But a ghoul also entered her room. Fortunately, Shadow came there to save her. After that, Shadow told her what Mary had said to him, and then he left immediately. Marie's companion came to the room, and was surprised to see the ghoul lying on the floor. When she found out that Shadow saved Marie, that was when Marie found out how dangerous Shadow was. But she still believed that Shadow was not bad, and then she decided to leave the place too. While Claire was looking for Sid, Mary approached her because she found out that she was also looking for the man who was also the same as the two men that she met earlier. She even informed her that she caught one of them smiling while facing a ghoul. Claire believed that her brother would only scream if he would see a ghoul, so she became more interested in the second person that Mary specified. But Mary said that the Blood Queen's followers had kidnapped the man and took him to the Crimson Tower. Mary had a hunch that it was possible that they would make him as an offering to the vampires to wake up the Blood Queen. While looking at the red moon, they knew that there was a high possibility that they would be able to wake her up. Since Mary was aiming for the Blood Queen, they both decided to work together. Meanwhile, the other members of the Dark Knight Association, led by Claudia, were trying to stop the ghouls, but their other colleagues suddenly left them. The ghouls were about to get them when Shadow suddenly came to save them. And just like what he did before, he also said to them what Marie had told him. While at the top of the Crimson Tower, a member of the Blood Queen informed Crimson that the preparation for the sacrifice was about to be completed. But they still had a few more problems, and they were Yukaim, the leader of the White Tower, and Juggernaut, who was the leader of the Black Tower. But apart from the two, there was another one who also continued to kill ghouls. It turned out that he was referring to Shadow, who had also participated in the battle between Yukaim and Juggernaut. That was when the fight between the two leaders stopped, and Juggernaut continued to enter the Crimson Tower. When Yukaim found out that Shadow rescued her companions in the Red Light District, she also decided to leave. White Devil had been watching Yukaim and Juggernaut for a while, but he knew that they were stronger than him, so he did not dare to fight them. But when he saw Shadow, he did not feel any strong power in him, so he thought that Shadow was weaker than him. For that reason, White Devil immediately attacked Shadow, but his action caused the end of his life. Meanwhile, Beta was currently inside the Crimson Tower to gather information in the library. After a few moments, Claire and Mary came there. Beta's plan was to eliminate anyone who would see her, but she knew she would not be able to do it anymore. When Mary confirmed that Beta was not a vampire, she decided to leave her alone, and Mary also noticed that she was not the only one in the room because she was with number 664, number 665, and Rose, who was better known in the Shadow Garden as number 666. But before they left, they asked Beta what they were doing in the library. Beta answered that they were researching about the possessed, and intended to take a blood sample from the progenitor vampire. She informed them that the origin of the possessed and vampires were the same. Mary did not like what Beta had said because it was a blasphemy to the progenitor vampire. Since they already spent a long time in the library, Claire told Mary that they should leave so they could save Sid. When Rose heard this, she tried to join the conversation, but Beta quickly stopped her from talking. As they were leaving, Beta asked Mary about the haven that made her feel annoyed. Claire noticed this, so when they killed a vampire that they encountered, she was so curious, so she asked Mary about it. Claire felt earlier that Mary was siding with the vampires, and on the haven mentioned by Beta. Mary did not give a clear answer on Claire's questions, and suddenly they felt a tremor. They saw Juggernaut in the distance, who was eliminating the vampires one by one. This included the notoriously powerful vampires in the Crimson Tower. After witnessing how strong he was, they decided to avoid him as long as they could. But Juggernaut had already noticed them, so he attacked Claire, who was hit by his strong punch. He also attacked Mary, then Claire got up and got worried when she saw the injuries that Mary suffered. In this situation, Mary could not avoid drinking Claire's blood. It turned out that she was also a vampire, and after drinking blood, she acquired new strength. She attacked Juggernaut, but it was still not enough to defeat the enemy. When Juggernaut was about to attack Claire, Shadow suddenly came there to kick him away from her. Shadow also left immediately, then Mary apologized to Claire for drinking her blood. That was the moment when Mary talked about her past and the truth about the Blood Queen. She started during the times when humans and vampires were fighting. But because the Blood Queen wanted to live with humans, she decided to stop drinking blood. The other vampires followed her, causing them to gradually lose their power, but it also had interesting effects such as being able to expose themselves under the sun. Until the red moon came, and when the Blood Queen was longing for blood, Crimson gave it to her. That was when the haven that they built collapsed, and she was able to survive by drinking the blood that was scattered on the floor. When she and Elizabeth were together again, Elizabeth decided to aim for her heart. But after this incident, she was suddenly attacked by Crimson and they took Elizabeth's body. She knew that Crimson would only use the Blood Queen on what he was planning. When Crimson got Elizabeth's heart, he put it in the human sacrifice during the ritual. But Shadow suddenly came and attacked it, causing its body to be dismembered. Shadow was disappointed because the ultimate boss that he was looking for was not there, so he decided to find that person downstairs. Little did he know that the one he was looking for was coming to life, so when Mary and Claire came there, the Blood Queen immediately attacked Claire. Then she pulled her to take her blood. Beta quickly headed there that they were able to recover Claire. Beta assigned number 664 to look after Claire, and the three of them helped each other in fighting Elizabeth. But no matter what powerful attacks they threw at her, those did not even affect the Blood Queen. Juggernaut suddenly came and punched Elizabeth, but it did not work either. Then Elizabeth attacked them, and most of them received serious injuries. Beta noticed that Elizabeth was also absorbing their blood to heal herself and became stronger as well. She was about to attack again, but Elizabeth was able to control the demon's blood as well, causing it to affect the possessed like her. Claire was also affected by this, and when she woke up, she was already in the infirmary where the doctor was the Witch of Calamity, named Aurora. She explained to Claire her situation, and told her about the person who helped her before to cure her possession. She added that there were two types of blood which was trying to adapt inside her body. For her to control it, a mark appeared on her hand. Before Aurora came out of the room, she introduced herself and informed Claire that she was helping her because of Shadow. That was the moment when Aurora's persona woke up in Claire's body, and Beta could not believe her eyes. Aurora exchanged attacks with Elizabeth, and when she was about to try to use atomic magic, Claire's body failed to control this power. Since she knew that Shadow was coming, Aurora returned Claire's body because she only wanted to give Shadow some time. When Shadow came there, he immediately exchanged attacks with Elizabeth. While they were in the middle of their fight, the gold coins that Shadow had taken earlier scattered around the area. Shadow did not want to run out of his gold coins, so he decided to approach Elizabeth in a close fight. They continued to exchange attacks with their swords. Until Shadow decided to use the recovery atomic. For this reason, the ghouls that scattered around the city had returned to normal. Shadow was able to defeat Elizabeth, and when Beta was sure that Claire was safe, she left with her companions. Sid took Claire to the inn, and she still could not believe the things that happened while looking at the mark on her hand. The next day, they decided to go back to Midgar, and so did Skell, Goldie, and Quentin, who were still grateful to be alive. During their trip, Claire told him that she wanted to know what kind of power she had in her hand. One night, Sid took a train and immediately changed his form as Shadow. It turned out that Yukime invited him because she wanted to form an alliance with him. On the other hand, a group of men blocked the train where the Mitsugoshi company loaded their products. According to them, their boss, named Garter, wanted to stop the continued success of the Mitsugoshi company. Little did they know that the women in front of them were members of the Shadow Garden. Then they were surprised to see Alpha on the roof of the train. By the time they realized who they were fighting against, it was too late and they were all defeated by the members of the Shadow Garden. Alpha knew that people from the underworld who were connected to the cult of devils would start showing up, and the battle would surely start soon. The next day while Sid was talking to Skell and he noticed that people wearing formal suits seemed to be increasing in number. He thought that it might be because of what they had learned from him. At night, he met with Yukime again, not as Shadow, but as John Smith, who was a super elite secret agent. They discussed about Garter's demand to call for a meeting with the major corporate alliance to counter the Mitsugoshi. But according to Yukime, their plan would not change. She also informed him about Getan, who was behind the major corporate alliance. She did not want Shadow to do something to Getan because she wanted to be the one to deal with this man. One day, while Sid was with Skell, he noticed the money which was new to his eyes. He learned that this was from a major corporate alliance, and this was also the reason why the sale development boosted today. When Pa showed the money that they were using before, Sid found out that it was from Mitsugoshi Bank. That was when he learned that Alpha had already set up a bank. He suddenly remembered what he used to say to them when they were young. It took him a while to notice the difference between the two paper bills. The Mitsugoshi money had different colors, while the MCA money seemed to look like a photocopy. For this reason, he thought of a plan, so he immediately left there with Poe's money. In the evening, he talked to Yukime again to tell her the plan that he had in mind, and it was called the credit creation. He showed Yukime the two paper bills, and she immediately noticed that MCA money was easier to fake. Although she thought that the authorities could easily track down the person who would spread fake money, she also suspected that this might be Shadow's plan all along. And if people find out that the money that they were holding was possibly fake, it would cause them to panic. Shadow did not expect this from her, while Yukime was thrilled because she thought that Shadow was testing her. One night, some members of the Shadow Garden attacked the staff of Garter. While Sid was eating outside, he thought that he was giving food to a dog. But it turned out to be Delta who wanted to ask more food from him. After they ate, Sid found out that Alpha was ordering Delta to get rid of the bandits. Since she also mentioned that she liked what she was doing, Delta forced him to go with her. The next day, Getan and Garter found out that one of their staff had been murdered the other night. Because of this, Getan decided to use his elite assassins called the Clovers. And that night, they immediately encountered Shadow and Delta. It turned out that one of the members of the Clovers was Delta's sister, named Zabra. But even though Delta knew that he was her brother, she still killed him because it was said that being weak was a shame to their family bloodline. In addition to this, she also had thousands of siblings because their father was a chief, that's why he had many wives. When Garter found out what happened to Zabra, he immediately informed Getan about it. Garter suggested a temporary retreat and reevaluate first, but Getan disagreed with this. Getan planned to summon the three remaining Clovers together to boost their offense against Mitsugoshi. After Garter left, that was when Getan realized that this was probably the reason why the Cult of Devils considered Mitsugoshi a threat. The three members of the Clovers immediately took action, but when they arrived at the Mitsugoshi Company building, Niyu found out about it immediately. They knew that these were Getan's men because they were currently investigating them as well. Alpha assigned Niyu to take care of them, but Gamma volunteered to face the intruders. Because of this, Alpha combined with Omega and Chi with Gamma. When they met the Clovers, Gamma introduced herself to them as the manager, named Luna because she knew that she was their target. Then it was here that Omega and Chi suddenly attacked the two Clovers. Gamma confronted the remaining Clover who introduced himself as Leaf One, or the strongest among the Clovers. When Gamma attacked him, she noticed his footwork which was similar to the Western Liek Tenroi style of fencing. The opponent did not expect that Gamma would know this right away, so he hoped that she would find a way to counter his style, but Gamma still did the same attack. He was able to hit her in the head, but he was surprised that her skull was so hard. After being hurt from that attack, Gamma decided to use her magical energy. From the power of each attack that she unleashed, it also caused damage to the building. When she rushed with one of her strongest attacks, she accidentally tripped, causing it to cause massive damage to the building. The enemy realized that he would not be able to defeat Gamma, so he planned to retreat with his companions, but it turned out that Omega had already beaten his two colleagues. When Gamma got up, she rushed for another attack, but the enemy quickly ran away. Gamma tripped again, but this time, her sword hit the enemy just in time. The next morning, Garter and Getan were wondering why the Clovers had not yet returned. They also lost contact with the lookout team, as well as with the reinforcements they sent. Getan thought that this might be the right opportunity for him to show his power. Meanwhile, Sid and Alexia were on training because she wanted to get stronger. She did not want the same thing to happen again, that she could not do anything for her friend Rose because of her weakness. Even her sister was also in her training to improve herself, and she knew that she would be left behind if she did not do anything. When Shadow and Yukime meet again, she presented the fake paper bill that they made. Yukime was able to copy the money perfectly, that the original money that they used was the one that looked fake. They made his deal and they decided to begin the distribution of this money immediately. Yukime left it to Shadow, but she reminded him again that she should be the one to take care of Getan. She wanted revenge because Getan massacred his mother, friends, and fellow villagers. When the distribution of fake money started, Gamma also learned about it. Alpha knew that this would also affect the Mitsugoshi company, but she also thought that it was also possible for MCA to do this thing. She assigned Gamma to find out where the fake money was coming from. A few hours later, Garter also found out about it after their cashier discovered it in one of their corporate stores. Because of this, Getan also assigned Garter to find out where it was coming from. Getan also had a plan to spread fake money to bankrupt MCA and Mitsugoshi company. This was the mission given to him by the Cult of Devils, but it would only happen if they recovered all the assets of the cult which was hidden in the MCA. But from what was happening in the current situation, and if the spread of counterfeit money was neglected, the cult might lose even more. At night, Rose and her companions traced the train that was carrying fake money. When they entered it, they were surprised that they did not even see anyone guarding it. But when Rose noticed the wire, that was when number 664 and number 665 fell into the trap. They saw John Smith, who was the one who did it. Rose rushed to him, but she also could not escape the wires. Shadow thought that it was too early for them to know about his disguise, so he threw them out of the train. Rose was about to try to chase the train, but number 664 immediately stopped her because they did not have a proper plan, and they might just fall into the trap again. Rose remembered what John Smith had done to them, that she asked herself why she was so weak. They immediately informed Alpha of what happened in their mission. Rose suddenly spoke and told Alpha that this John Smith was good in fighting, and she also thought that he was as strong as the Seven Shadows. She wanted to express her desire to fight him again, but she was taken out of the room by number 664. After a while, Alpha decided to send Delta to face John Smith. So one night while Shadow was delivering counterfeit money to Midgar, he saw Delta chasing the train that he was riding. When she entered the train, she quickly attacked him. The two of them fought until Delta destroyed the wagon that they were riding in. But Shadow took this opportunity to use the debris on her. When he approached Delta, she smelled something familiar and thought that he was Shadow. She immediately let him know, and John Smith could not do anything but admit that he was indeed Shadow. He just told her that he had a secret mission, so he pretended to be John Smith. Then he gave her a new mission because the Shadow Garden had rules that the missions that he would give still needed to be prioritized over other missions, even though Alpha gave the order. He showed Delta the Lawless City and wanted her to go there and find the person named Juggernaut and kill him. She quickly followed him and immediately headed to the Lawless City. The next morning Gamma spoke to Alpha to show her what they found at the scene of the fight between Delta and John Smith. Gamma knew that Delta would not disobey Alpha's orders, so they thought that she might have lost the fight. Alpha ordered to continue the search for Delta and do their best to find her body. When Getan found out about John Smith, he ordered Garter to conduct a checkpoint and inspect everyone entering and leaving the royal capital. When the news about the MCA checkpoint spread, Iris also heard about it. She met Alexia and found out that she was also reading books related to politics, engineering, economics, and others. But Alexia made it clear to her that she still had not neglected her sword training. In the evening, Beta delivered an update to Shadow regarding the continued spread of fake currency and the unauthorized conduct of the MCA checkpoint, which had a negative impact on the marketplace. Beta also informed him about Delta, and this caused Shadow to feel uneasy on her reaction. To make her feel better, he said that Delta might just be in a faraway place. Before he left, he gave her a paper with a code written on it. He told her that if she understood the meaning of what was written on it, he would share with her things that he already knew. A few hours later, he once again delivered counterfeit money to Midgar. When Yukumi's staff informed him that they were close to the checkpoint, he got out of the train to destroy those blocking them. But he saw Alpha ahead, who had been waiting for him. The two of them fought, and while Alpha was analyzing his movements, she immediately realized that he was Shadow. She could not understand why Shadow was doing this, and she immediately asked where Delta was. Shadow just said that he sent her far away, but Alpha could not accept his answer. She then thought that she was no longer useful to him, so he acted alone in the missions. This was painful for Alpha since she always wanted to support him because he saved her life. So he told her that when everything was over, they would understand him. Then he used force against Alpha to leave her there. When he arrived in Midgar, he and Yukime started swindling the MCA fund. After they finished the work, Yukime told him about her past with Getan. He happened to be her fiancé, but this happy moment turned into a nightmare between the two clans. Their village was burned, and she saw her mother dead. She found out that this was done by Getan after her mother refused to submit to the cults. Getan also tried to make her take a pill, and when she refused to drink it, he also attacked her. From that day, she worked hard until she arrived at the lawless city and acquired the wealth she needed. But she clarified that this was not her true desire. She definitely wanted to find Getan and get revenge on him. On the other hand, due to the spread of the news about the counterfeit money, many shops no longer accept paper money. When Getan and Garter talked again, they still could not trace which factory was producing the fake money. But he said that he found out who the person behind it, and it was Yukime, which surprised Getan. A few moments later, Getan heard the bell rang by Yukime. He knew that it was her, so he ordered to stop the carriage. Meanwhile, Alpha was currently sulking after what Shadow did to her. She was thinking that Shadow had abandoned them because they could not reach the level that Shadow was expecting from them. After Gamma heard what Alpha said, she started crying out of sadness. Niyu suddenly entered the room to inform them that they had found evidence that Getan was actually conducting an operation for the cult of devils. They also found out that he was planning to spread counterfeit money to bring down the Mitsugoshi Corporation. It was the moment when Alpha realized that Shadow spread the fake money because he already knew what Getan was planning. Then Beta suddenly came to show them a message. It turned out that she managed to crack the code that Shadow gave to her the other night. After this discovery, they understood why Shadow was acting alone in a mission. The letter also stated where he hid the gold coins that they got from MCA. And as for Delta, she suddenly appeared to them because she was worried that Alpha might scold her. After Getan got off the carriage, he headed to Yukime's location. They started to fight, but Yukime was strong and was just beating him. When Yukime was about to leave, Getan decided to make himself stronger, so he took the pill. For this reason, Yukime was unable to avoid Getan's surprise attack on her. He was about to kill her when someone suddenly attacked him. It turned out to be Shadow, and when Getan got up, they both fought. Even though Getan had the extra power from the pill, it was still not enough to match Shadow's strength. He was about to take the remaining pills, but Shadow made a quick attack to stop him. Shadow punched him until he remembered that Shadow might also be the person who attacked him before that caused him to lose his sight. After Shadow beat him, he approached Yukime to heal her wound. While he was healing her, Yukime remembered the day when a man also healed her wound that she suffered years ago when Getan attacked him. She felt that Shadow was also that person, so she thanked him for saving her. Meanwhile, Iris arrested Garter after what he did in the kingdom of Midgar. When Yukime returned to the place where they had stored the gold coins, it was no longer there. Alpha suddenly appeared to them, so they found out that it was Alpha's group who took the gold coins. She gave a letter to Yukime which they believed is Getan's letter. That was also the moment when Alpha told them who they were and what their purpose was. She offered Yukime to continue the alliance with them and fight the cult of devils. And Yukime did not hesitate to accept Alpha's offer. One day, Skel and Pa visited Sid to invite him and search for beautiful girls. But Sid was not there, and when they went near Sid's bed, they saw on the table 6 VIP tickets for the grand opening of Mitsugoshi Hot Springs Land. They knew that it was not easy to get this ticket, that even the rich were having a hard time to acquire it. They suddenly had an idea, and thought of using it to attract the ladies, and they would start inviting the beautiful Mitsugoshi employees. They immediately went to the Mitsugoshi, and when Niyu saw that they were holding the VIP tickets, she took them to a room to ask why they had them. Since they were afraid of Niyu, they immediately said that these tickets were from Sid. Niyu wondered why their master gave the tickets to his classmates. So she thought that she needed to inform the 7 shadows about this. The 7 shadows immediately met to discuss this. But since the others did not know what this Mitsugoshi Hot Springs Land was, ETA reminded them how they got it. After they defeated a group of cultists, they learned about the Dragon's Tears or Golden Tears. Shadow assigned them all to dig the area while he still had a mission to complete. Until one day, ETA discovered a hot spring, and they decided to build the Mitsugoshi Hot Springs Land. Their conversation returned to the 6 tickets, and the 7 shadows decided to choose 3 of them to go on the date. Since they all wanted to go on a date with their master, they just tried their luck and played the rock, paper, and scissors. Delta, Beta, and Zeta won in the game, but the girls were surprised that Sid was not with Skel and Pa, and this disappointed them. Skel and Pa were terrified to see the girls' reaction, so they said that Sid would be late, and in an instant, the mood of the girls suddenly changed. However, Alpha still had a strong suspicion that their master might not actually be coming there. While they were waiting for their master, they decided to have fun, but Skel and Pa did not seem to enjoy the day with these scary girls. A few moments later, ETA detected an abnormal magical signature in the underground of the hot spring. For this reason, they all headed to the hot spring to join ETA. Zeta could not stop thinking about the dragon tears, and luckily Lambda had prepared a shadow play about the friendship between a princess and a dragon. There was a war in the kingdom of the princess, and when the dragon looked for her, she was already weak and fighting for her life. After the princess shed tears, the dragons cried too, until the whole kingdom was covered in tears. On the other hand, Skel and Pa were trying to sneak a peek at the girls, but they did not know that there were traps ready for perverts like them. When Poe's tears fell into the water, the hot spring quickly reacted to it. Since its effect was weak, they thought of using Beta's tears because she was said to be a self-proclaimed princess. They made a way to make her tears fall, and when it fell into the hot spring, a water dragon appeared to them. The 7 shadows quickly dressed to fight this dragon and ensure the safety of the guests. They attacked the dragon at the same time, and after Alpha's attack, they successfully defeated the dragon. After the fight, they had seen the golden tears mentioned in the legend. A golden dragon suddenly approached Beta, then it slowly disappeared. Alpha thought that Shadow might wanted to save this dragon's soul. They took this opportunity and made the appearance of the dragon a special event, so they could sell their grand opening merchandise. A few days later, while Sid was in Oriana, he visited Marie's tavern. Number 664 and number 665 were also there, while Rose was in the room to rest. Rose dreamed of her father who was telling her that he would never forgive her, and this caused her to wake up from her sleep. Then she remembered that their next mission was about to begin, so she also got ready. When they came out, number 664 informed them that number 559 would lead them in this mission. 559 was known to them after she defeated number 89, which was why she had the right to challenge the named numbers. At night, they went to the first ruin, and 559 was already there. Since they did not know the full details of their mission yet, number 559 explained it to them. They had to find out what the cult of devils was currently planning. She asked Rose about her opinion why she was included in the mission, so Rose said that she was familiar in the place. But 559 revealed that it was her who requested to include Rose in this mission. She knew that Rose's power came from Shadow himself, which was why numbers 664 and 665 were so amazed. She revealed that only the 7 shadows had the power that came from Shadow, while the others only received their powers from the 7 shadows. But according to number 559, she was same as Rose because her power came from Shadow too. A few moments later, they noticed that the members of the cult of devils started to take action. They immediately moved closer and saw Quadoi. He used the key card on a pedestal, and then the Queen of Oriana, who was Rose's mother, also appeared, and this surprised Rose. When she put her hand on the glyph, the pedestal opened, and they saw Freya's ring of legend. After what they witnessed, number 559 asked them to prepare for a battle, and the girls were not expecting this to happen. They needed to get this ring because it was said to be a key. When number 559 attacked the queen, Rose acted quickly to stop her. When Quadoi saw Rose, he was glad because they did not need to search for her. Since Rose refused to step aside, number 559 was forced to punch her. She now considered Rose a traitor, and that was when their fight with Quadoi began. Due to the number of opponents, they were able to get Rose, and this information immediately reached Gamma. In this situation, the security in Oriana was temporarily at ease, and they thought that this was the right time to send reinforcements. Gamma decided to let Lambda speed up the organization of their army. And in Rose's situation, they would let Perv Asshat get their hands on her for the meantime. When Sid woke up, he also saw the news about Rose's return to the palace. Because of this, he remembered what happened to the former king, and he was wondering why Rose killed his father. Based on their last conversation before the incident, he also thought that Rose might wanted to be the supreme tyrant. His imagination once again occupied his mind, and had hint on what could happen if Rose achieved this. Suddenly, 3 men came to charge money on Marie again. Sid pretended that he was going to try to help Marie, causing him to get beaten up by these men. Although those men still got the rest of Marie's money, she was still thankful to Sid. She had no idea that Sid did it on purpose, and then he decided to leave. At night, he went to the hideout of those who beat him earlier. As one of them continued to speak, he had no idea that his colleagues had been killed already. And when he noticed this, he was unable to fight when Sid quickly ended his life. Sid brought the gold coins to the tavern, and Marie noticed something too. When she came out, she was surprised to see the gold coins. She also saw Shadow, which made her think that he was watching her. 3 days and nights had passed, but number 559 was still fighting against Quadoy's group. Quadoy could not believe that she was able to eliminate the first group who were with him. But since she was getting weak, Quadoy was able to injure her. She was about to be killed when she noticed Shadow above the sky. Shadow gave her strength so she could defeat Quadoy with just one attack. Number 664 and number 665 could not believe how the injuries they sustained healed quickly. When Shadow came down, number 559 informed him about Rose's alleged betrayal in the Shadow Garden. Number 664 did not agree to this because they knew that Rose only did it because her mother was there. While number 559 continued to speak, a newspaper fell on Shadow and it stated that Rose was getting married to Perv Asshat. Shadow could not accept this because what Rose had done to her father would be pointless, and his expectation the other day would not be fulfilled. He decided that he was going to see Rose because he wanted her to rule the Oriana Kingdom. The next morning, Lambda delivered their reinforcements. Omega and Chi met them, and they also discussed about Rose. As an instructor, Lambda could not accept what Rose had done. Although she wanted to be the one to punish Rose, she was told by Omega that it was impossible because even the 7 shadows were not authorized to do this. So she immediately thought that it was up to Shadow to take care of this. She was worried because she knew that Shadow was merciless when it came to those who opposed the Shadow Garden. While Sid was walking and thinking about what he was going to say to Rose, Epsilon saw him. It turned out that she was invited to play in front of Perv Asshat, and her appearance was just right on time because Sid was able to enter the royal palace without any difficulty. She also informed him that their other members were already inside to watch the area. Perv Asshat also saw them and he went closer to greet Epsilon, who was known to them as Chiron. When Perv Asshat noticed Sid, Epsilon introduced him as her student. But Perv Asshat said that they would not let other people in the palace even if it was a companion of the one they invited. But he said that they could let Sid stay if he would show his talent in playing the piano. Sid was excited about it and immediately followed what Perv Asshat wanted. When he started to play the piano, there was an assistant who was so amazed by his music. People were also dumbfounded by his talent, so Sid took advantage of this opportunity to steal the jewels of the nobles. After he played for them, Perv Asshat asked for his name, but according to Epsilon, she would introduce him formally if he completed his apprenticeship. Sid used his power to find the ring, and when he traced its location, he quickly took it. A few minutes later, he told Epsilon that he was going to walk around the palace. Suddenly, the assistant who had been watching him earlier, named Margaret, came and volunteered to guide him around the area. Sid agreed because Margaret insisted, and he learned that she was also currently serving Rose. While they were walking outside, there was a soldier who was so angry at Sid. He tried to ask Margaret the current location of Rose. At first, she refused to speak about it, but soon Margaret also informed him of her exact location. When Sid left her, he was met by the soldier who had been watching them. It turned out that he was jealous of him because he liked Margaret. While he was busy talking about him and Margaret, Sid left him. After a few minutes later, he arrived at Rose's room. Rose was so happy that she immediately hugged him. They talked about her decision to marry Perv Asshat. No matter what Sid said to change Rose's mind, he still failed to convince her. One of Rose's bodyguards reported to Perv Asshat that he heard another voice in Rose's room. With a heavy heart, Rose told Sid to forget about her, and this was her only wish. So when Perv Asshat came to her room, Sid had already left. It turned out that Rose was forced to marry Perv Asshat because he threatened her with her mother. Perv Asshat had no idea that Sid was just on the balcony, and he overheard their conversation. In the evening, Epsilon talked to number 559 after their failed mission. But she admitted that it was not number 559's fault because the Seven Shadows chose not to inform Rose about her mother. Epsilon also told her that Shadow and Rose had met already, and he did not punish her. She had a hunch that Shadow had another reason, and he wanted to keep it to himself. And their current problem was the enemy's desire to use the ring, and if the legend was true, it would cause great damage to Oriana. After Sid had his bath, the girls immediately took care of him. He also informed them that he seemed to have solved their problem. After hearing the good news, they were even more amazed at him. On the other hand, Perv Asshat talked to his boss, named Mordred, who was one of the Knight of Rounds. He asked for an update on the progress of their plan and about the Black Rose. They knew that the Shadow Garden was already making a move in Oriana, so Mordred reminded Perv Asshat about it. He added that if Perv Asshat could complete their plan, he would guarantee a seat in the Knights of Rounds for him. Perv Asshat was complacent that he could control everything because he had the ring. The next day after Sid played the piano for the guests, he started looking for the Queen. He wanted to have evidence that he could show to Rose. A few minutes later, he caught her flirting with Perv in a room. So at night, he visited Rose's shadow, and this caused her to think that he was going to punish her. He asked her to come with him in the room where he saw Perv Asshat and the Queen earlier. Rose could not believe what she saw, that even her stomach could not take it anymore. That was the moment she realized that her mother was a traitor. Rose was so disappointed at her mother that she suddenly lost consciousness. Shadow took her back to her room, and when she woke up, she was very sad about what happened to their soldiers and his father. After a while, she came out of her room and saw Sid playing piano on the balcony. After what she discovered earlier, she thought of going to a faraway place with Sid because despite of what happened to her, he still stayed by her side. But he said something to her to open her eyes of more important things. Then he suddenly disappeared, but he left behind the ring he got from Perv Asshat. When Rose took the ring, this was when she had the courage to follow what she really wanted for the Oriana Kingdom. The day of the wedding had arrived, but many people gathered outside the palace to protest because of their anger at what Rose had done to the former king. A few minutes before the wedding started, Perv Asshat checked the ring again, but he was shocked that it was no longer in the box. For this reason, he was confused, and for others not to notice that he lost the ring, he thought that he would find a way to postpone the wedding first. But the wedding began, and Perv Asshat gestured and pretended that he was looking for the ring. And when the priest asked Rose if she wanted to accept Perv as her husband, she refused to be his wife. Rose took this opportunity to accuse Perv Asshat of being the culprit in manipulating her father. Then she also showed the ring to him, and when she put it on, she was surprised on what had appeared. It turned out to contain a message from the former king after he learned that someone was on the move to overthrow him. He knew that Perv Asshat was the one behind this, and since he also knew that he would not last long, he made his last wish. He wanted to bestow the leadership of Oriana on Rose, and instructed his subordinates to support his daughter. After watching the recorded video, Perv Asshat tried to defend himself, but other noble turned him down. Rose was about to arrest Perv Asshat when someone suddenly attacked and killed him, including the Queen. It turned out that this was done by Mordred, who disguised himself as the priest. He revealed that he just used Perv Asshat and the Queen in his plans. And the only thing he wanted was for Rose to wear the ring, so he could be able to open the portal. When this so-called portal opened, it released a very powerful force. This was the Black Rose, where the Grand Ruler of the Fourth Realm, called Ragnarok, came out of it. It attacked the people outside the palace, so Shadow took action to retaliate against this creature. But it sent out its disciples, so in that situation, the other members of the Shadow Garden who were already there, began to expose themselves. After Ragnarok's hand regenerated, it ordered his disciples to attack people. Shadow sent Rose away because he knew that she had other things to do. Then he faced Ragnarok, and let Epsilon and Beta take care of Mordred. Mordred immediately showed the strength of his sword, which was why he was nicknamed the Knight Beyond Men. But the girls did not waver because they knew that the sword that he was using and even the armor that he was wearing were just an artifact. In Mordred's anger, he attacked them again, but Epsilon just blocked it. Along with the other members of the Shadow Garden, Rose fought the disciples of Ragnarok to save her subjects. She met Margaret, so she instructed her to open the warehouse under the Harden and let the residents hide in it for their safety. Then she went to her soldiers to inform them of her plan to save the victims. After a few moments, she was surprised when Mordred was thrown in front of her. Since Epsilon and Beta were more powerful, they just beat him up. When Mordred got up, they started asking him questions about the Black Rose, magical beasts and the cult of devils. Mordred did not want to talk, but they thought of a way to make him tell the truth. Since he believed that the Ragnarok would end them all, the girls just insulted this creature. But Mordred was confident on Ragnarok's strength, so he was forced to speak. He began to explain about the other dimensions which they called realms. These worlds were inhabited by monsters that possessed extreme magical powers. The realms revolve around a center, and the human world was also one of those that revolve around it. He admitted that they had not been able to determine what was at the center because they were still observing it. But the bigger problem was those that circulate around it, and once the two of them meet by chance, they would be connected to each other. An example of this was what happened in their world millions of years ago. They learned that once upon a time, magic did not really exist in their world. It only emerged when their world collided with a realm, and there was a high possibility that the magic came from there. But there was also a possibility that even humans were also from this realm. And as for the demon, it was formed in their world. But the creature that was used as a basis for this was from another realm, and they call it the First Realm. They learned a lot from this creature, and one of them was the Black Rose. When the Oriana Kingdom accidentally opened it, they went there to close this gate again. Rose was supposed to be the sacrificial lamb for it, but her father refused to hand her over. Suddenly, something fell on Mordred, and it turned out to be Ragnarok's hand. When they looked up, they saw Shadow's final attack to the Ragnarok. Number 559 came there to inform Beta that they had defeated the enemies. Mordred suddenly got up to approach Ragnarok's severed hand, and then inserted his head into it. After what he did, he took the form of a monster, but Shadow just called it a defect. In Mordred's anger, he attacked Shadow, and that was when their fight started. But Shadow just played with him until he beat him up. For Shadow's last attack, he used one of his strongest atomic. It caused bright light that reached the Midgar and everyone saw it. When the light went out, only Shadow was seen by the girls. But something suddenly appeared behind him. When he touched it, it suddenly sucked him in, and at the same time, the ring was destroyed. It showed the state of the world where Kage or Shadow came from. There was a riot going on there, and Akane was one of the recognized heroes in this world. Akane thought of Kage again because every time she looked at the moon, she would remember something from it. She was about to try to save her other friends, but no one was left alive. When she was on her way back to their base, she was suddenly attacked by two men who abducted her before. She was taken to an abandoned building, and it was here that she found out that someone wanted to kill her. A man approached her to strangle her, but he stopped when they heard something. Suddenly, the entire building was destroyed, and it was done by Shadow. I hope you like it and give it a thumbs up. Please subscribe to my channel so you won't miss new uploaded videos. Thank you for watching.